Before Martin Lawrence became a household name, he starred in a barely released comedy that bombed at theaters but featured future stars, bizarre production quirks, and oddly specific plot details that make it one of the strangest footnotes in 90s comedy history. Fact 1. Martin's first lead role. Nobody remembers. Before Martin Lawrence became one of the biggest comedy stars of the 1990s, he took his first shot at carrying a movie in Talkin' Dirty After Dark, and almost nobody remembers it happened. This 1991 comedy marked Lawrence's debut as a leading man in cinema, arriving at a pivotal moment in his career when he was still building his reputation in stand-up and television. At the time of filming, Lawrence had appeared in supporting roles in television shows, but he'd never been the face of an entire movie before. The film cast him as Dookie, a struggling comedian trying to make it big at a South Central Los Angeles comedy club while dealing with money problems and romantic complications. What makes this forgotten first starring role so strange is the timing of everything that came after. Just 1 year later, in 1992, Lawrence's sitcom Martin premiered on Fox and turned him into a household name almost overnight. The show became a cultural phenomenon, running for 5 seasons and making Lawrence one of the most recognizable faces in comedy. But by the time Martin was dominating Thursday night television, Talkin' Dirty After Dark had already come and gone from theaters with barely a trace. The film's poor box office performance and limited release meant that most fans who discovered Lawrence through his sitcom had no idea he'd already starred in a feature film. Even today, when people discuss Martin Lawrence's film career, they typically jump straight to Bad Boys in 1995, or nothing at all, skipping over this earlier attempt entirely. It's a peculiar piece of Hollywood history where a star's first leading role became retroactively erased from public memory, overshadowed by the massive success that followed so quickly afterward. Fact 2. The director co-created Martin TV show. The connection between Talkin' Dirty After Dark and the Martin sitcom runs much deeper than just starring the same comedian, because director Topper Carew would go on to co-create Martin Lawrence's iconic television show just 1 year after this film's release. Carew, who had already established himself as a producer and director in television, saw something special in Lawrence during the making of this low-budget comedy. The experience of working together on Talkin' Dirty After Dark essentially served as an extended audition and creative partnership test that would lead to one of the most successful black sitcoms in television history. Carew didn't just direct the film and walk away. He observed Lawrence's comedic timing, his ability to carry scenes, and his natural charisma in front of the camera throughout the production. This hands-on experience gave Carew the confidence to bet on Lawrence again when the opportunity arose to develop a television series. When Martin premiered on Fox in August of 1992, Carew served as both co-creator and executive producer, helping to shape the show's tone and style. The sitcom's success vindicated Carew's belief in Lawrence's star potential, even though their first collaboration had stumbled badly at the box office. What's particularly interesting is how different the two projects turned out to be. Talkin' Dirty After Dark was a raunchy, rough-around-the-edges comedy aimed at adult audiences, while Martin, though edgy for its time, had broader appeal and showcased Lawrence's range across multiple characters. The film became an unlikely stepping stone to television greatness, with Carew and Lawrence learning valuable lessons about what worked and what didn't. Their creative partnership, forged in this obscure comedy movie, would go on to entertain millions. Fact 3. Box office disaster. With exact numbers, Talkin' Dirty After Dark didn't just perform poorly at the box office, it crashed and burned with oddly precise numbers that tell the story of a complete commercial failure. The film managed to gross exactly $978,775 during its entire theatrical run, falling just short of the $1 million mark by a mere $21,225. For a movie released by New Line Cinema, a studio that had found success with the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise and was building its reputation as a major independent distributor, this return was catastrophically low. While the film's exact production budget hasn't been publicly disclosed, even the most modest studio releases in 1991 typically needed to earn several $million just to break even after accounting for production costs, marketing expenses, and theater splits. The fact that Talkin' Dirty After Dark couldn't even crack 7 figures at the box office suggests that very few people actually bought tickets to see it. That total gross spread across multiple weeks and various theaters means that on many nights, screenings probably played to nearly empty houses. The precision of that final number, recorded down to the last dollar, stands as a permanent record of the film's failure to connect with audiences. What makes this particularly painful is that 1991 was actually a strong year for black cinema, with films like Boys in the Hood and New Jack City becoming genuine hits and cultural touchstones. But while those films were drawing crowds and making headlines, Talkin' Dirty After Dark quietly disappeared, unable to capitalize on the moment or find its audience, despite featuring a rising comedy star and being backed by an established studio. Fact 4. The $67 phone bill plot device. The entire plot of Talkin' Dirty After Dark hinges on one of the most oddly specific and mundane motivations in movie history. The main character desperately needs to come up with exactly $67 to pay his overdue phone bill. This isn't a story about saving a comedy club, winning a big competition, or achieving stardom. It's literally about a struggling comedian named Dookie trying to scrounge up enough money to keep his phone service from being disconnected. The specificity of that $67 amount is what makes it so bizarre, because most movies would round to a cleaner number or make the stakes feel more significant. Instead, the screenwriters committed to this very particular sum and built the entire narrative around it. Throughout the film, Dookie hustles, schemes, and navigates various complications, all in service of reaching that exact financial goal. The phone bill becomes the ticking clock, driving the story forward, with the threat of disconnection serving as the main source of tension. What's particularly strange is how relatable yet simultaneously underwhelming this plot device is as the foundation for an entire movie. Many people have struggled to pay bills, but that everyday anxiety doesn't typically translate into compelling cinema. The writers seem to be going for a slice-of-life realism that showed the unglamorous side of trying to make it as a comedian in Los Angeles, where even basic utilities become luxuries when money runs tight. However, this grounded approach also meant the film lacked the larger-than-life stakes that audiences typically expect from theatrical releases. The $67 phone bill represents a creative choice that's simultaneously admirable for its honesty about financial struggle and questionable for its lack of dramatic weight. Fact 5. A car that only goes backward. One of the most memorable and absurd running gags in Talkin' Dirty After Dark involves Martin Lawrence's character, Dookie, driving a car that literally only works in reverse, creating some of the strangest automotive scenes ever put on film. This isn't a car with transmission problems that occasionally slips into reverse. It's a vehicle that has completely lost the ability to go forward and can only be operated by backing up everywhere. The film treats this ridiculous situation as just another indignity in Dookie's struggling life, with the character forced to navigate Los Angeles streets by constantly looking over his shoulder and driving backward. The practical challenges of actually filming these scenes must have been considerable, requiring careful choreography and probably some traffic control to pull off safely. What makes this detail so wonderfully weird is that the movie never really explains how or why the car ended up in this condition. It's simply presented as an established fact of Dookie's existence. The backward-only car serves as both a sight gag and a metaphor for the character's life moving in the wrong direction, though the film never explicitly draws attention to this symbolism. Instead, it plays the situation mostly straight, with Dookie treating his reverse gear-only transportation as an annoying but manageable inconvenience, rather than the complete impossibility it would be in real life. The scenes of Lawrence actually attempting to drive this way, backing through intersections and past other vehicles, have a surreal quality that makes you wonder how much of it was actually performed versus clever editing. This bizarre automotive situation exemplifies the film's willingness to embrace absurdist comedy elements while keeping them grounded in the everyday struggles of its characters. Fact 6. Filmed in 8 months before release. Talkin' Dirty After Dark completed principal photography on December 8, 1990, and hit theaters on August 16, 1991, giving the production team just over 8 months to finish post-production and get the film ready for release. In today's filmmaking landscape, this timeline might seem relatively normal, but for early 1990s cinema, especially for a studio release from New Line Cinema, this represented a remarkably quick turnaround from final shot to opening night. The 8-month window had to accommodate editing, sound mixing, music scoring, any additional dubbing or automated dialogue replacement, color correction, creating film prints, and all the marketing materials needed for theatrical distribution. This compressed schedule suggests a few possible scenarios about the production. Either the film was made so simply and economically that post-production moved unusually fast, or New Line Cinema was rushing to get it into theaters, while Martin Lawrence's star was rising from his television appearances and stand-up specials. The December completion date meant the film was being finished right at the end of 1990, positioning it for a midsummer release the following year. Summer releases typically require more lead time for marketing campaigns, which makes the relatively short gap even more notable. The quick turnaround could also indicate that the studio had modest expectations for the film and didn't invest heavily in elaborate post-production effects or extensive re-editing based on test screenings. Whatever the reason, the speed from wrapped production to theater screens shows that Talkin' Dirty After Dark moved through the system efficiently, though that efficiency didn't translate into box office success when audiences finally got the chance to see it. Fact 7. Part of a historic film. Boom Talkin' Dirty After Dark arrived during an unprecedented explosion of black cinema that made 1991 a watershed year for African American filmmakers and stories on the big screen. That single year saw the release of 19 films by or prominently featuring black talent, a number that exceeded the entire output of the previous decade combined. This remarkable boom was driven by the surprise success of Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing in 1989 and the massive box office performance of House Party in 1990, which proved to Hollywood studios that black films could be profitable. Suddenly, major and independent studios were greenlighting projects they would have previously dismissed, leading to this explosion of diverse voices and stories. Talkin' Dirty After Dark found itself in the company of genuine cultural landmarks like Boys and the Hood, which launched John Singleton's career and earned 2 Oscar nominations, and New Jack City, which became a major commercial hit. The year also saw releases like Jungle Fever, Straight Outta Brooklyn, Daughters of the Dust, and Livin' Large, each taking different approaches to black storytelling and representing different genres and budgets. What's both fortunate and unfortunate for Talkin' Dirty After Dark is that it got swept up in this historic moment but couldn't capitalize on the attention black cinema was receiving. While films like Boys in the Hood were making headlines and sparking national conversations, this small comedy about a struggling stand-up comedian couldn't find its audience despite being part of the same cultural wave. The film represents the other side of the boom, the projects that got greenlit in the excitement but disappeared quickly, while their more successful counterparts defined the era. Fact 8. Costume continuity. Easter egg. Sharp-eyed viewers of Talkin' Dirty After Dark noticed a peculiar costume continuity detail that might be an intentional Easter egg or possibly just a creative shortcut born from budget constraints. In one scene, the character Ruby appears wearing a distinctive outfit, and later in the film, observant audience members spotted that exact same outfit appearing in a framed photograph sitting on Dookie's desk in his office. The matching clothing raises interesting questions about whether this was a deliberate choice by the filmmakers or an accidental bit of continuity. If intentional, it could suggest that the photograph was taken recently, or that Ruby has a favorite outfit she wears repeatedly, adding a small layer of character detail. If unintentional, it reveals the practical realities of low-budget filmmaking, where costume options might be limited, and the same wardrobe pieces get recycled across different scenes and contexts. What makes this detail particularly noteworthy is that someone actually noticed it and documented it, suggesting that despite the film's commercial failure, there were viewers who watched it closely enough to catch these small visual connections. The fact that this continuity element has been discussed among the film's small cult following shows how certain movies, even unsuccessful ones, can develop devoted fans who analyze every frame. Costume continuity issues are common in films of all budgets, but they usually involve mistakes like changing shirt colors between shots or disappearing accessories. This particular instance is different because it connects 2 separate moments in the story through identical wardrobe, creating either an unintended visual callback or a subtle piece of character consistency that most viewers would never consciously register. Fact 9. Future Borat stars early role. Buried deep in the credits of Talkin' Dirty After Dark is an actor named Ken DeVitian, playing a forgettable character listed simply as seatmate, who would go on to become internationally famous 15 years later in a completely different type of comedy. DeVitian's tiny role in this 1991 film represents one of his earliest screen appearances, long before he became recognizable to millions as Azamat Bagatov, Borat's producer and traveling companion in the 2006 mockumentary Borat: Cultural Learnings of America for Make Benefit Glorious Nation of Kazakhstan. The contrast between these two performances couldn't be more stark. In Talkin' Dirty After Dark, DeVitian appears so briefly that most viewers wouldn't remember him at all, while his role in Borat became one of the most memorable supporting performances in comedy film history, including the notorious nude wrestling scene that became infamous worldwide. DeVitian's journey from this forgettable bit part to international recognition took a decade and a half of steady work in Hollywood, appearing in television shows and films before Sacha Baron Cohen cast him in the role that would define his career. The fact that he appears in Talkin' Dirty After Dark creates a strange connection between two very different eras and styles of comedy. This wasn't a case of spotting a future star in a breakout role. It was simply one working actor taking whatever parts were available while building a career. For trivia enthusiasts and film historians, discovering DeVitian in this obscure comedy adds another layer to both his personal career arc and the film's legacy, as a snapshot of early 1990s Hollywood, capturing people at various points in their entertainment industry journeys. Fact 10. Def Comedy Jam Talent Showcase. Talkin' Dirty After Dark functioned as an unofficial showcase for comedians who were making names for themselves on Def Comedy Jam, the groundbreaking HBO stand-up series that launched in 1992 but had its roots in earlier specials. The film's cast featured multiple performers who were part of that comedy movement, including Mark Curry, who would go on to star in his own sitcom Hangin' with Mr. Cooper, and Lance Crowther, who became a writer and performer on several comedy projects. The filmmakers clearly wanted to tap into the raw, edgy energy that these comedians brought to their stand-up performances, creating a movie that felt connected to the contemporary black comedy scene rather than polished Hollywood storytelling. This casting approach gave the film authenticity when it came to the stand-up sequences and comedy club atmosphere, since many of these performers were actually working comedians who understood that world intimately. However, it also meant the film featured mostly inexperienced actors who were better at delivering jokes on stage than inhabiting characters in a narrative film. The Def Comedy Jam aesthetic was all about unfiltered, aggressive, provocative humor that pushed boundaries and spoke to urban audiences, and Talkin' Dirty After Dark attempted to capture that same spirit. What's interesting is how the film served as a time capsule for this particular moment in comedy history, preserving performances from comedians who were part of a cultural movement that was reshaping stand-up and opening doors for black performers. While some of these cast members went on to successful careers in television and film, others remained primarily stand-up performers, making this film one of the few permanent records of their work from this era. Fact 11. Legendary LaWanda Page. Cameo. One of the most unexpected casting choices in Talkin' Dirty After Dark was the appearance of LaWanda Page, the legendary actress best known for playing Aunt Esther on the classic sitcom Sanford and Son, who showed up in a bizarre dual role as both an angel and a devil character. Page, who had built her career on playing tough, quick-witted women with unforgettable comedic timing, appeared in what seems to be a surreal fantasy sequence where she represents both sides of moral guidance for one of the characters. This unusual creative choice to have the same actress play both the angel and devil suggests either a deliberate artistic statement about moral duality or simply a practical decision to maximize Page's limited screen time. By 1991, Page was in her 60s and had already cemented her legacy in television history, making her participation in this low-budget comedy film somewhat surprising. Her willingness to appear in Talkin' Dirty After Dark might have been motivated by a desire to support a new generation of black comedians and filmmakers, or simply because she enjoyed working and staying active in the industry. The angel and devil sequence itself represents one of the film's more overtly comedic and fantastical moments, breaking from the otherwise grounded story of struggling comedians in Los Angeles. Having a performer of Page's stature and recognizability appear in such a brief, strange role adds to the film's overall sense of being an odd collection of elements that don't quite cohere into a unified whole. For fans of Sanford and Son, seeing Page in this completely different context likely provided a moment of nostalgic recognition, even if the film itself didn't leave much of a lasting impression. Fact 12. Afro-French farce description director Topper Carew described his own film using one of the strangest phrases ever applied to a comedy movie, calling Talkin' Dirty After Dark an Afro-French farce, a description that raises more questions than it answers. The Afro part makes sense given the predominantly black cast and the setting in south-central Los Angeles. But the French farce comparison seems like an unusual reach for a movie about struggling comedians and comedy club drama. Traditional French farces are known for their rapid-fire plotting, mistaken identities, physical comedy, and bedroom complications, elements that don't obviously align with what Talkin' Dirty After Dark was attempting. Carew's use of this high-minded description suggests he saw the film as something more sophisticated than a simple raunchy comedy, perhaps trying to position it within a broader theatrical tradition of physical comedy and complicated romantic misunderstandings. In interviews promoting the film, Carew emphasized that while the movie featured raunchy humor and adult situations, he believed it was actually tamer and less offensive than the material Andrew Dice Clay was performing at the time. This comparison to Dice Clay, who was then one of the most controversial comedians in America, known for his deliberately offensive persona, indicates Carew was trying to manage expectations about the film's content. He wanted audiences to know they'd get edgy comedy without crossing into what he considered truly crude territory. The disconnect between calling something an Afro-French farce while also comparing it to Andrew Dice Clay perfectly captures the film's identity crisis, caught between aspirations of being artistically interesting and the reality of being a low-budget comedy, trying to capitalize on raunchy humor and Martin Lawrence's rising profile. Fact 13. Released in Los Angeles. 4 months late. In one of the stranger distribution decisions surrounding Talkin' Dirty After Dark, the film received its initial theatrical release in August of 1991, but didn't actually play in Los Angeles movie theaters until November 27, 1991, more than 3 months after its official opening. This delayed Los Angeles release is particularly bizarre, considering the film is set in south-central Los Angeles and features the city's comedy scene prominently. You would expect the hometown audience to get first access, or at least simultaneous access with other markets, but instead, Los Angeles residents had to wait months while the film played elsewhere. This unusual rollout strategy suggests either a lack of confidence in the film's ability to perform in the competitive Los Angeles market, or possibly difficulties securing theater space in a city where countless films compete for screens. It's also possible that New Line Cinema was testing the film in smaller markets first before committing to the expensive Los Angeles theatrical market, though by November, the film's poor box office performance elsewhere would have already been apparent. The delay meant that by the time Los Angeles audiences could see Talkin' Dirty After Dark in theaters, any momentum from its initial release had already dissipated, and reviews, if there were any, would have already been published based on screenings in other cities. For a film trying to capture the authentic feel of Los Angeles comedy clubs and street life, not opening in Los Angeles feels like a significant missed opportunity. The people most likely to recognize the locations, appreciate the local references, and connect with the setting had to wait until the film was already on its way to being forgotten everywhere else. Fact 14. Set in pre-riot South Central, ELA Talkin' Dirty After Dark captured the atmosphere and street life of South Central Los Angeles in late 1990 and early 1991, just months before the Los Angeles riots of April 1992 would forever change the area and how it was perceived by the rest of the world. The film's setting in the comedy clubs and streets of South Central presents a snapshot of the neighborhood during a specific moment in time, before the civil unrest following the Rodney King verdict brought international attention to the area's tensions and struggles. While the movie was primarily focused on comedy and entertainment rather than social commentary, it nevertheless documented the look, feel, and energy of the neighborhood during this pre-riot period. The comedy club scenes, street interactions, and general atmosphere of the film preserve details about how people dressed, talked, and moved through these spaces before everything changed. This accidental time capsule quality gives the film a documentary value it probably wasn't intended to have, serving as a visual record of a place and time that would soon be transformed by tragedy and national scrutiny. The fact that the film was made and released before the riots means it wasn't trying to comment on or process those events. It simply existed in the moment without knowing what was coming. For anyone interested in Los Angeles history or the evolution of South Central as a community and cultural center, Talkin' Dirty After Dark offers glimpses of the area's comedy scene and street life from a crucial transitional period, even if the film itself wasn't concerned with being historically significant. Fact 15. Real stand-up sets inserted into film. Approximately 25 minutes of Talkin' Dirty. After Dark's 89-minute runtime consists of actual stand-up comedy routines performed by the cast members, creating a hybrid film that straddles the line between narrative comedy and concert documentary. This significant portion of the film dedicated to uninterrupted stand-up sets means that more than a quarter of the viewing experience is watching real comedians deliver their material on stage rather than advancing the plot or developing characters. The decision to include such extensive stand-up footage was clearly intentional, reflecting the filmmakers' desire to showcase the genuine talent of their performers and give audiences a taste of authentic comedy club experiences. However, this approach also created pacing issues, since the film essentially stops its story every time it cuts to another comedian doing their set. These stand-up sequences weren't tightly integrated into the narrative, but rather presented as separate performance pieces that happened to occur within the film's comedy club setting. For viewers who came to see a movie with a cohesive story, these extended stand-up breaks might have felt like interruptions, while comedy fans might have appreciated the opportunity to see performers doing their actual material. The blurred line between scripted film and stand-up showcase reflects the production's uncertain identity, never quite committing to being either a full narrative feature or a pure comedy concert film. This structural choice influenced everything from the film's pacing to its ability to build dramatic tension, since it's difficult to maintain story momentum when the action keeps stopping for 5-minute comedy routines. The extensive stand-up footage does give the film archival value as a record of these performers' work from the early 1990s, preserving their routines and stage presence in a way that might not exist elsewhere.